We live in a country where civics is a part of our curriculum, but being citizens is not a part of our ethos. We have with us a gentleman who quit a very, very lucrative corporate career, came back to our lovely country and his hometown of Bangalore to create an organization that's encouraging individuals to take up citizenship. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Ramesh Ramanathan, who will be leading our next session.
I'm going to start with a very simple two-part question. How many of us think that India is a great country? Okay, it's a two-part question, so if you put your hand up, keep it up. This is the second part of the question. How many of us think that India has a great government? One person who got their hand up and the neighbor saying, "Are you crazy? Put it down." But why did we answer this question this way? Which is, everybody put our hand up when we said India is a great country. But when it came to thinking about our government, we put our hand down. Why? What is it about India that made us say this is a great country? Great people, great heritage, tradition, culture, music, art, food.
Except government.
And so that comes to the second question. Why is it that we said, when we asked, do we have a great government, we put our hands down? What made us put our hands down when we said, not a great government?
Corruption.
Nothing, no corruption. What we do not say what we used to say. We do not do what we say.
Okay.
If we do what we say, then India will be a great country.
Okay. So you put your hand down because you don't get people in government doing what they say. Basically, the distinction is everything that we said India is a great country, if you think about it for a minute, is all about our past. It's our tradition, our music, our culture, our heritage. And everything that we said we put down our hands for is all about our present. This was the journey for my wife and I. We're both products of Bangalore. She's a Gujarati, I'm a Tamilian. I was brought up in a classic middle class house where we would have intense debates about issues. I remember when I was growing up, there was the emergency. Big debates in my family between my father and my mother and my grandparents about was Indira Gandhi right, was she not right. So there was a lot of engagement. But this engagement was in our drawing rooms, over our breakfast tables. It was not about actually going out and doing things. And that was the way it was. There was nothing different. We didn't think it was unnatural. Until we left India and we went and lived overseas. We spent about 10 years of our life, a lot of it in America for about 8.5 years, and about a year and a half we spent in the UK. And while we lived in the US, it was typical upwardly mobile NRI community. I got an MBA, I used to work in a bank, my wife got a master's in design and she worked for an architecture firm. And we were like every other typical NRI household, working hard on the weekdays, getting some time off for ourselves on weekends. And when we lived there, we lived in the tri-state area, which is in New York, the belt of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. When you live in the US, you get very often in your mailboxes these colored pieces of paper which will talk about, volunteering, something is happening this weekend. And frankly, we would never do anything about it. Because who had the time? You had 5 days a week, you're working really hard and you have to take care of the laundry, some personal time for yourself. So we didn't do anything about it. As our lives progressed and our personal finances improved, we moved to a place in north of New York called Connecticut in a nice town. And soon after we moved there, within a couple of weeks, we got a similar thing saying, we're going to clean the local park this weekend. Please wear your, don't wear fresh clothes, wear some old clothes, and we'll give you some beer afterwards. So we said, who the heck wants to clean the park? Isn't that the responsibility of the government? But because we had just moved for very selfish reasons, we said, let's go there, maybe we'll meet some neighbors, we'll get to know the local community. So we went. There was somebody there who gave out instructions, he gave out a rucksack, pitchfork, and said, this is what you clean up, and so on. Spent about 2 hours, we got the beer as well afterwards. All in all, nothing extraordinary as an experience. Until Monday morning. I used to take a 6:30 train to Manhattan. So at 6:30, I was standing at the train station. When standing 15 feet away from me, I saw the guy who had led the park cleanup operation the previous day. He was dressed in a suit like me, reading the Wall Street Journal. So I went up to him and I said, wait a minute, aren't you the guy from yesterday, the cleanup of the park and so on? He said, yeah. I said, but I thought you were some NGO environmental activist, somebody who did this as a passion. And so we talked on that 1.5 hour journey into the city, we talked. And it turned out that this was extremely important to him. He took this really importantly. This was not something he did casually. What he did on his weekends, the issues he cared about, defined who he was. But B, that he was not alone. There were hundreds of people like him. So with that experience, he then connected us to others, and we saw lots of people volunteering in local issues. There's a thing called the soup kitchen where they do things for local issues and so on. But there was something more fascinating as we went down that journey, which is that these are not just issues about caring for your society, because Indians do as well. But there was something deeper, and that relates to what we are doing now, which is to the topic of citizenship. It was connected to government. So as we started talking to these people and learning about it, one day they said, we're having a local meeting in our school this Friday evening, why don't you come along? And we went there. This is a regular, school. The auditorium had been packed on a Friday evening, 300, 400 people there. That was the local county budget discussion in that local town. So like this, the hall is packed. My wife and I were sitting in the back. And the mayor of the town comes and he welcomes everybody, and then he says, okay, now I'm going to hand over to Jim, who is the head of the finance committee. And Jim gets up, and Jim is a volunteer. He is some banker or head of finance at some company locally there. And he says, thank you, it's been a privilege for 1 year to be to be chairing the finance committee for the town. This year our capital budget is $20 million because the schools committee wants to put computers, the parks committee wants to change the toilets and so on, but our budget is only $4 million, we only got $4-5 million. So what do we do? And over the next 15 minutes, people are voting. Average people like you and me are saying, okay, we want this, we want that. They get up, they speak for 30 seconds, they speak for 2 minutes. At the end of it, they put up their hand, they say yes, no. In 15 minutes, average people have participated in making decisions about their local issues. And then he finishes, the next guy comes, the school committee, the health committee. Average people like you and me are engaged with the political system. Swati and I are sitting in the back and saying, what the hell is going on? This is not the democracy that we grew up thinking about. That cardboard caricature about good people sitting in our debate, in our drawing rooms and having debates, and some corrupt politician or some inefficient bureaucrat. This is vibrant engagement in local issues. We felt that we needed to come back and make this happen in India. Because the more we read about it, and frankly, we had the same civics classes, we had read about the independence movement and so on. But somehow, this aspect of a democracy had missed us. That at the heart of it is this very energizing thing which gives each one of us a role to play in a very practical way, not some theory. So we felt we needed to come back and do this. And the more we read about this idea called democracy, the more we realized that this is what it's ultimately about. So a few years later, in 1998, my wife and I both gave up our jobs. We made whatever money we wanted to make to satisfy us for the rest of our lives. Our needs are good but limited. So we've said, as soon as we reach that threshold, we'll go back and open a new chapter in our lives. And that's what happened in 98. We came back. For 14 years, we've been running Janaagraha. And at the heart of Janaagraha is what came up in the previous person's talk, which is be the change you want to see. In fact, the word Janaagraha is inspired by the word Satyagraha. I don't know how many of you know, but Satyagraha is a coined word. Mahatma Gandhi actually ran a competition in the 1890s to give a term to the movement of non-cooperation. So they came up with Satya and Agraha. Agraha means the moral force. So the moral force of truth. Janaagraha is the moral force of the people. The ability to participate, to give voice to what we want. So we've run a lot of campaigns, so I won't get into that. But along the way, about 7 or 8 years ago, our daughter, who was at that time, she's 21 now, she must be more than that, but maybe 10 years ago almost. She was about 11 or 12 years old. She had taken part in her school, some music competition. So they had a choir in their school, and then a lot of different school groups had got together. And they had this, event where all the different schools came together. And my wife and I, like proud parents, had gone and we listened to this. And they had a beautiful program, and our daughter sang, and she sang about world peace and so on. So as soon as the program got over, we went backstage, we picked her up, and as we walked out, we told her very well done and so on. And then I asked her, I said, you sang about world peace, so what are you going to do about it? And she said, Papa, are you crazy? You know how much effort this took us, how much rehearsals we had, how much time we have to give up for all this? What are you talking about? I said, no, but you just sang about world peace. What are you going to do about it? And my wife said, Ramesh, what are you being so harsh on her? I said, no, I just want to ask a practical question. And there was an old man standing at that gate of the auditorium. It was in that Guru Janaagraha. So I said, imagine this man is world peace. And you're walking by and you say, I'm only in 8th standard. I can't help you. And he says, okay, I'll wait. So you say, wait till I'm finished my 10th, then I'll come and help you. And then you get to your 10th and he's getting a little older and he asks you, can you help me now? And you say, I'm writing my IIT exams, I'm doing my medicine or whatever. Give me 2 more years. As soon as I get into college, I'll help you. And then you get into college and that old man is getting older and he's getting sicker. And then you say, this is engineering program is really difficult. Wait until I graduate and then I'll help you. And of course, one thing leads to another. He's getting older, he's getting sicker. And you've got your own life. One thing leads to another and you're consumed by your life. And 15 years later, you have your child and you're walking by and there's this wizened old person who's still waiting for you to help him. And your daughter asks you, who is this? And you say, this was world peace and I have not been able to help him. And so my daughter started crying. She listened to this and she said, Papa, I am in 8th standard. What do you want me to do? So my wife and I sat down and spoke that night and we said, there's no point moralizing to them. They're children. We have to do something about it. So the next day we started this program called Janaagraha, where we went to the school where our daughter studied and the principal was very welcoming. And we started in one school and we basically said, let's take over the civics class. Because the civics that we studied was boring stuff. It was about, how does the Lok Sabha get adjourned? What are the powers of the president? Who goes to the Rajya Sabha? Who cares about all this stuff? What if we could take it and convert it into the stuff that we had experienced when we were living overseas and the stuff that we were doing in India, which is about local issues. So we said, we are going to do civics, which is practical, which is about your neighborhood. Where does your water supply come from? What happens to your garbage? Have you ever seen a sewage treatment plant? Have you ever gone and seen a police control room? And we'll design it in a way that it's exciting, it's easy to understand, and practical. No more theory. Indians are just great at solving every problem from Kashmir to Kanyakumari over our dining tables. We cannot solve the garbage problem outside our door. So this is about practical stuff. Right? So we started this 8 years ago. And we made a textbook called Me and My City. We got the Commissioner of Public Instruction in Karnataka to give us the okay for it. It went from 1 school to 3 schools to 5 schools to 20 schools to 40 schools to 80 schools to 100 schools to 130 schools. So we run this ourselves in 150 schools in Bangalore. Okay. About 2 years ago, we got a call from Patna, from DPS Patna, saying, we want to run this program. We've heard about this program, we want to run it. So we said, oh my God, we hadn't even thought about how do we do this in other places. So that got us thinking and we said, why don't we create a model where it can be run by others and so on. Well, in the last 2 years, we are now running this program in Patna and Hyderabad, and I'll get to this, Hyderabad and Pune. And this year, Ludhiana. Okay, and this year, we have the pleasure of partnering with Sultan's team, where we are saying, we want to do it in a way that in the next 5 years, we run the 100 schools or so ourselves, but we want 500,000 schools running this program across the country. What's in the program? 3 things. There's an in-class session. There are 8 chapters which tells you about, how is your local city done. And let me ask you a simple question. Everybody here is from cities in India, right? Yes. Anybody not from a city? No. So let me ask you, what do you know about your own city's government? So I'm talking about voting. Forget voting. How much do you know about your city government? How many wards are there in your city? How many corporators? What is the budget of your city? What if I told you the budget of Mumbai is 27,000 crores? If Mumbai was a listed company, it would be in the top 30 of the Bombay Sensex. Bangalore's budget is 8,000 crores. Biocon, which is one of the most admired companies in India, is 4,000 crores turnover. Our knowledge of local government is inversely proportional to its importance. We have no clue. And we talk about next generation, this is the future of the country and so on. Let's fix ourselves first. Let's understand this ourselves. So the engine of this are the teachers themselves. The places where this works really well are the places where there is a small group of teachers who are champions of this. We have programs, we have schools in this group of 100 that we run, which have been with us from the last 8 years. So the program has 3 components, 8 in-class sessions. And by the way, it's a great magnet for volunteers from your community or where your school is. We have volunteers from multiple companies who come and do this. Groups of people who've been doing it for years. Dell Computer sends 20 volunteers every year. For the last 4 years, Dell's volunteers have won the Global Volunteer Program, best program for run by volunteers, 4 years in a row across the company worldwide. And it brings so much energy to you. So that's one. The second is, it's called a civics project. You actually have to take up a project. No theory class, no elocution contest, no essay writing contest, no poster making. You have to solve a problem. Do a mapping of the traffic outside your school. Map the footpaths. Figure out what we have all the content for it. Actually take up a problem. When the cars come and park or when the footpaths are not or broken, how does it get solved? Who's supposed to solve it? Who's the engineer? Who's the council? And guess what? In Patna, that school, where the students, when they did a mapping of this, they took that project to the chief minister. They said, we've identified what the problems are. We've also identified the solutions. By the way, these are 8th standard students. Because we can't do 9th and 10th because it gets too much into the high school and so on. And we can't do 7th and lower because they're too young for this. So 8th is the right age. The chief minister of Bihar has allocated 80 lakhs of rupees to fix that road. Outside that school. Like this, there are hundreds of stories. And by the way, we're running this across the social spectrum, in government schools, in aided schools, in private schools. So there's no discrimination here. And the final thing, the third component of what we run is a civics fest, where in that particular city, all the students come together in a festival, where they talk about the projects that they've taken up, the ideas that they have, the innovations that they've thought about, and so on. And they share it in a beautiful space. And we've been running this now for years. It's one of our best programs because everybody loves it. And my point is, we're at a time in India where we cannot talk about this anymore. We have to do something about this. Enough talk. This program is going to end today, or tomorrow, or day after, and then you're going to go back to your schools and your lives and your challenges and the complexities of what you need to deal with. Please, you don't have to do this program. Whatever you do, don't go back and run civics the way it's been run. It is something we should be ashamed about. We owe it to our children, we owe it to ourselves to do something about this so that we can reinvest in the word citizenship. Thank you so much.